Let's be honest, so far in 2025, crypto has not really done what it's done in previous cycles. Normally, about 6 months after the halving is where Bitcoin breaks its all-time high and everything goes parabolic. However, 6 months after this halving, what do we see? A bloodbath for most altcoins. And so, in this video, we'll be covering where do we go from here? What is the most likely direction following a golden cross from Bitcoin, and also what's going on with global M2? And then we'll finish answering the big question, can 2025 still be a massive year for crypto? Okay, so first up with Bitcoin recently making a golden cross, let's take a look at what normally happens after these kind of events and why I remain cautiously optimistic. So jumping into Bitcoin on the daily, and what do we see? Well, this is the latest price action, and what we're looking at here is this most recent golden cross event where the 50-day moving average breaks above the 200-day. And the golden cross, as the name suggests, that it should be bullish, and the opposite being a death cross, which obviously doesn't sound too good. So with the death cross, we can see people normally like to preempt it, and there was a lot of weakness going into it, then a big flush out before the big rally. Obviously, this has been quite a good move from Bitcoin, a very good recovery, but we've seen a lot of weakness, and after this golden cross, there was a 5% correction and then a big, deeper 10% correction. So what is going on? Why is it crashing after a golden cross? Well, if we just take a look at the last couple of golden crosses over the last couple of years, we can try to see what typically happens. So just scrolling back, and this was the previous golden cross here. So this one was in October 2024. And what do we see? There was a nice run up, but there was also a crash after the golden cross. And if we just get a measured move here, this was about 9%. And then the one that's just gone, this one was about 8%. So if we base it off what happened in the last golden cross, there was pretty much the exact same kind of sell-off. And then if we get this rally, I'm sure everybody's going to be pretty damn happy. So even just to this point, there's a good 30% move. So based on the last one, you would have to be optimistic about, even though there is a lot of weakness after the golden cross, if this happens, I'm sure everybody's going to be really, really happy. Now, scrolling back, we can see that was the last death cross. And then the last golden cross, a big run here, taking us all the way back to October 2023. Now, this one is a bit of a different pattern. There was a large move upwards, and then even though there was a golden cross, it pretty much just floated all the way up. So although we didn't get a sell-off, it would still suggest that after a golden cross, there's a good couple of months from upside. So that's pretty damn good. And then we'll look at one more so we don't go too far back. So we remain in this environment where we've had high rates and QT. And we'd have to go back the last time. Let's go back to February 2023. So this one was a little bit more ugly. So we can see as the golden cross happened, there was an initial 9% sell-off. So that pretty much exactly what's happened now, followed by a nice 20% run. However, this time a much bigger sell-off, going down about 20%. But check out the volatility. Following a 20% drop, it saw a 55% move to the upside. So even if we do get another deeper sell-off, because we're in a bull market, it just means that the next big run is going to be even better. So to me, looking at the last few golden crosses, the fact that we've got a 10%, 8, 9, 10% correction is nothing new. And even if we get deeper sell-offs, the next couple of months has always been up. So to me, I'd say you'd have to be cautiously optimistic. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is this global M2, because this is the chart that's getting a lot of people excited right now, because it pretty much correlated with the massive pullback that happened in the financial markets this year. A lot of people are saying that this is just related to what was happening with global M2. And as you can see, it pretty much bottomed at a very similar time, and then everything has reversed, correlating with global M2. So what does this chart say to me? Well, as you can see, we've rallied back and are testing the highs from the beginning of the year. So if we look at global M2, this would correlate to about here. So it would suggest that we're in this kind of rough period here, where we've had this nice peak. And if anything, it looks to me that Bitcoin is leading global M2 and not the other way around, which is interesting. But I'd say I remain cautiously optimistic, because after this correction here, if this is what is going on here, then the next move blasting past this high should take us on to new highs before the next big correction. So this would suggest to me that we're pretty much any time from now could be getting the next move, breaking us past to new all-time highs if this continues to play out. So you'd have to say, based on global M2, I'm again cautiously optimistic. And even though we're getting these big corrections, interestingly, global M2 also has these big corrections as well. So if this is true, that the market is just correlated to what's going on with global M2, this would say to me that we're just going through this big correction period here, and a sharp move to the upside is coming in the next week or two. And then finally, we're going to try to answer the question, can 2025 still be an epic year for crypto, even though the Fed, this is the Fed's balance sheet, they are running QT, shrinking the balance sheet, and obviously interest rates, they're keeping them super high. So even if nothing changes from a macro point of view, can crypto still do well? Well, the thing I would like to point out is if we just zoom out a little bit. So now also let's just drop in the Fed's funds rate here. We can see the terminal rate was around 5%. They have lowered it, but it's still about 4.5%. So rates are still pretty damn high. So the thing I'd like to point out is that just take a look at what happened here. So yes, rates are very high, QT is running, and the Fed's balance sheet is shrinking. However, Bitcoin can still do massive runs to the upside. If we go back a little bit further, so we can see what happened here. So at this point, Bitcoin was around 26,000 and it had a run all the way over 70,000, yet rates were very high and QT was running. Obviously, this is where the crypto market bottomed this last time, and you can see this is just a big run after a big run after a big run after a big run, and this is when interest rates were actually being raised at the time. And apart from this big move here, QT was still running before this, and the Fed's balance sheet was shrinking. So this says to me that even though it is a headwind, crypto can still make massive moves to the upside, even though QT is running and rates are high. Let's just take a look at Ethereum to see if this changes the game, see if this changes this analysis, as Ethereum is a good proxy for the altcoin market. but it's pretty much the same thing. You can see from this point here, this is a massive run. So from this point where Ethereum's about 1500 up to about here, so there's 160% move. And this is when rates were super high and the Fed was shrinking its balance sheet. So this says to me that 2025 can still end with an absolute boom, even if the Fed doesn't change its rates. In fact, we're down here. And even if QT continues. So that's the good news. Obviously, if this was the opposite, if we had low rates and they were running QE, that's a massive tailwind, but we can still get massive runs, especially in altcoins in this macro environment. So far in 2025, crypto's not really done what it's done in previous cycles, where by now we'd seen much bigger gains. To me, after studying the last few golden crosses, we do normally get a 10% correction, and then the next few weeks, there's a whole nother level up. So, cautiously optimistic. Global M2 also looks pretty good and suggests another level up, so cautiously optimistic. And then finally, we saw even with high rates and QT, crypto can still make massive moves to the upside. So again, cautiously optimistic. So there you are, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Now, finally, we also have to remember that the massive explosive moves that we all know and love about crypto only really happen in the very last few months of the market cycle. So again, I still remain optimistic for a big August, September, October. If you did enjoy anything in the video, then drop a like, and a big thank you to everyone who does, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.